Welcome to the Fantasy Huddle. I'm Randy Shaver along with Kevin Gorg. We're excited to talk fantasy football with you today. This show sponsored by Aquarius Home Services. We're here in the Aquarius Home Services studio. Also by 10K Construction, Minnesota Masonic Charities, and Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. All right, preseason week 2 is done. Just some general thoughts before we kind of dive into some more specific things from preseason week 2?
Yeah, it's funny. You have to pick and choose your battles this time of year, Randy, because a lot of teams after those joint practices aren't playing a lot of their go-to players. But there are, I'll use Cincinnati as the example, some teams that are taking a different approach this year to the preseason and playing their guys. And you've been able to see some pretty good football. I think the game on Monday night that featured Cincinnati and Washington had some very fantasy-relevant players, which is rare for this time of the year in the preseason. And we've got some injuries. We've got roster moves. So, yeah, quarterback decisions are starting to be made. And I think that all has a ripple effect on many fantasy players.
Yeah, I think the quarterback situations you're talking about, Joe Flacco named the starter for Cleveland, and Daniel Jones named the starter for Indianapolis, and makes you wonder what's going to happen to Anthony Richardson and what the situation is going to look like. Those are two quarterbacks I'm staying away from because I'm not going to mess with that in fantasy football, nor am I going to mess with New Orleans because they still can't figure out what that's going to look like.
We don't even know who that quarterback is. The one thing I'll say about the two quarterbacks you brought up, probably not the most fantasy relevant. They're more of a backup type of guy. But for me, the ripple effect is I moved up all of their key weapons. I think it matters.
Well, certainly. I agree. Cleveland, for sure, for me. Now I look at Judy a little bit different because I know Flacco's going to throw the football there. So.
They've put up numbers, and they are confident with those two guys at the helm. And I'll use Daniel Jones over Richardson. Richardson, much more of a runner. Daniel Jones can run, but the receivers in that offense, I believe, will be positively impacted. We talked about that on our first show. I'm big on the tight end, Tyler Warren, and I was hoping it would be exactly the scenario that played out. So there are going to be draft positions that are definitely impacted by these choices.
Of course, week 3 preseason is coming up this weekend, and the fact of the matter is most every starter is not going to play here in week 3. So we've kind of seen the top players get their moments in preseason, and so now you've got to kind of guess and see how the cuts work and everything else to see how everything shakes out. I'm going to start with our preseason thoughts for game 2. And here's 3 things that I kind of zeroed in on. The Rams quarterback situation. Stafford is hurt. Bennett did a great job as a backup. But what's going on in L.A. with the Rams? And again, the ripple effect, it affects their passing game and those receivers. The other thing, Zach Charbonnet. I jumped on Zach Charbonnet in a couple of my drafts early, and I'm on him even more now. I know Kenneth Walker is injury prone. When he's good, he's really good. But I think Charbonnet, for me, is one of my safety nets in fantasy football. He had 5 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. And then the other one is Tyler Loop, the Baltimore kicker. He's not listed. If you look at kickers, and I know our cheat sheet here doesn't have kickers in defense. We made that decision not to do that. But on other fantasy cheat sheets, they do have kickers listed. And he's not even in the top 15 or 20.
Which shocks me.
Which shocks me because he has been really good in the preseason. He's got a big leg. And, if you're going to wait to take a kicker at the end of your draft, why not take a chance? They're going to score points.
Yeah, if you're going to play in leagues with kickers, and everybody has to make that decision. About half my leagues we do, about half we don't. But why not take an offense like Baltimore? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. That's why Tucker was so good. Yes, Tucker was a great kicker, but it's opportunities gained. When you have a team like Baltimore that is constantly in the red zone, you're going to get more looks.
And that's kind of, I guess, my approach to fantasy football in a lot of ways. I don't necessarily, yes, I look at the players, but I look at the offense.
For sure.
Which offense, like in week 15, week 14, week 13, they're still going to be producing, as opposed to, well, I'll take a Cleveland player or I'll take a New Orleans player. Those kind of things matter to me, like the Buffalo offense, the Eagles offense. That's important.
Absolutely,
to look at that whole overall system that they run.
And I think, we'll use it with the local tie is you look at Minnesota. You look at teams that you think can produce offense. And then you look at weather, because for all of us that play fantasy football and then include the kickers, the weeks you're talking about, 13, 14, 15, that's crunch time.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, if you've got a kicker in Chicago or a kicker in Green Bay and you've got those frigid temperatures, that also will impact your opportunities that you're going to get with that kicker. So I don't mind an offense like Minnesota's, which I think is going to be a good offense, and indoor kicking at crunch time won't hurt either.
Did you have some takeaways from preseason week 2?
Well, my concerns lie with, and again, we all have a myopic look at our teams, and I've got Devin A-Chain everywhere, or A-Chain. I know they pronounce it both ways, and he's hurt right now. And that's certainly things that you have to watch with both the joint practices and now the preseason games, are when these hamstring injuries pop up, are you prepared? And, for me, I was really good about having his backup on most of my rosters. And so I've got Jalen Wright, but now the word out of Miami is Jalen Wright has struggled in the preseason. He has not been good. 4 carries for 3 yards and a couple of stuffings inside the red zone. So now I've got Ollie Gordon on my radar, because it feels like, especially if there's an injury with Achin and he can't go in those first couple weeks, Gordon's going to get significant time in the red zone, kind of like Jordan Mason is with Minnesota. So that's something I'm watching. And then I think the biggest story right now, if you look at where we were a month ago when you and I got together, put our list together, started talking about this stuff, what's happening in Washington right now is legit. When you hear teams start to shop number 1 running backs like Brian Robinson Jr., there's a reason for that. And the reason is Ja'Cory Merritt. He is the steam of all steam. So I think as fantasy players, we have to be really careful right now, because everybody is overreacting. This kid's good.
Yeah.
He's looked unbelievable. I talked about the game on Monday night. Yeah. The kid looks awesome. They're shopping Robinson. They like what they've seen. He's a kid that transferred to Arizona last year, and because of some of the eligibility rules, he only got to play 1 game. But he blew up in the East-West senior game, 2 touchdowns in that game, over 100 yards. He's looked great. I'm moving him way up on my draft board, but I'm not going to overreact. I mean, I think you have to remember, again.
You sound like you're overreacting.
I'm not, but I am moving Robinson down and him up. And I think most fantasy players now are aware of that. But on this show, we have to make you aware that you be careful not to go crazy. If you start drafting him over Derrick Henry, you've gone too far. But in that second wave of running backs, your RB2, so that 13 through 24 range, I'm all good there.
And that's kind of where we're heading to in our next segment here. We said last week we wanted to talk about rounds 5 through 12. That's kind of really where you win your fantasy drafts. It's everybody in the first 4 rounds. You're going to get great players. It depends on which players you decide, kind of determines the rest of your draft and how you look at it. But for the most part, you're going to get 4 legitimate starters in the first 4 rounds. It's from 5 through 12 and really kind of 8 through 12, where you take a few shots, maybe some players fall, where you can make some hay in that draft. And if anything else, build depth on your team to where if an injury happens or the bye week comes up, that you've got a really good player that jumps in to that position. So Kevin and I have kind of come up with a list of players 5 through 12. And I'll start with my running back thoughts on 5 through 12. In some of my drafts, Alvin Kamara has fallen all the way to the 5th round. Now, again, I'm not a great guy on the New Orleans Saints, but he's a little bit too good to pass up. Mm-hmm. If he's there between rounds 5 and 6 and 7, I think I've got to take him. Now, he hasn't been there that many times, but he has fallen a few.
Crazy.
And I'm going to take him in there. R.J. Harvey. Now, I know that Dobbins is kind of the starter right now. That's the conversation. This is your club, the Broncos. But if I see R.J. Harvey somewhere between rounds 7 and 10, I'm going to take him. I'm going to take him because
with good reason.
I'm looking at maybe not right out of the gate he's going to be there, but I think eventually he's going to end up being that guy. And my other running back thoughts from rounds 5 through 12 are the Vikings running backs, Jones and Mason. Can I get them both? That would be incredible because honestly, Kevin, Aaron Jones has fallen quite a bit in my drafts. Not quite to round 5, but pretty dang close to round 5. And if I get him in round 5, then if Mason is there rounds 8, 9, or 10, I'm probably going to handcuff because, to your point, I think Mason's going to end up being the goal line guy, and Jones will be the guy who catches the football for that PPR, those extra points.
I think there's a very legitimate world where both the Vikings running backs are consistent double-digit point producers in PPR formats, because you mentioned it. Aaron Jones is still going to be the guy that's going to catch between 3 and 5 balls every single game. That's almost a touchdown in points right there if you play a full point PPR. And both KOC and now we've even seen interviews with Jones. They both said that they're okay with Jordan Mason being the guy inside the 10-yard line. Where the Vikings struggled last year, frankly, running the football, Jordan Mason is a beast in that area. So he's going to get a bunch of touchdowns. I'm with you. I listed Jordan Mason as a 9th-round guy that I'm targeting. I may even jump up if that's the way the draft is falling. James Conner, though, is Mr. Reliable that everybody tends to overlook, and I don't know why. Arizona's they're bringing the entire band back. The offense we saw last year, they made no changes. They feel good about it. They tried to get better on the defensive side of the ball. But this is a guy that consistently performs. And if you can get a player like James Conner in the 5th round that might end up being an RB1 on your roster, he has a legitimate chance to be a top 12 running back this year, catching the football, scoring touchdowns. He's going to get double-digit touchdowns. He's going to catch 50 to 60 footballs. I love it. I think he's a steal.
Okay, so those are our running backs to kind of think about in rounds 5 through 12. Here are the receivers that I kind of look at in these rounds. First one, Calvin Ridley. Tennessee.
I love him.
Cam Ward's going to throw the ball, and Ridley has really been kind of his go-to target during the preseason, and likely will be during the regular season. And he's falling. I mean, I'm getting Ridley in rounds 6 and 7 in that area. So I'm going to take him because he's got potential to have a big year, I think. Ricky Pearsall, your guy, 49ers. That 49er receiving core is still kind of a jumble mess here. We don't really know. Ayuk is out. Jennings is still barking about money. Pearsall seems to be that guy. And again, I'm finding him between rounds 6 and 10. He's sitting there and he's going to, the 49ers receivers have been so overlooked in all my fantasy drafts. I mean, I'm talking like rounds 6, 7, 8. That's where they're falling, which is crazy because they're going to throw the ball during the course of the season. And my last guy's Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed led the Packers in receptions the last 2 years in a row. In all of my drafts, it's just bizarre. He's still there in round 7. He's still there. And so I'm going to jump on those guys. I mean, there's a ton of other players that you'll see in your drafts, but those are 3 guys that when I see them in that middle portion of the draft, I'm going to try to grab those guys.
I'm with you. And, for an offense like Green Bay that, they throw the ball plenty when they get in that red zone. And I don't know why you wouldn't want a guy that back-to-back years has been kind of the go-to guy in that area of the field. So my first guy in the middle of the rounds at receiver I like is Jacoby Myers, another player that keeps falling down these draft boards. And I don't get it because we understand who Brock Bowers is. He is the alpha tight end, but every team that plays the Raiders now is going to play to defend 2 things. The phenom rookie, Genty, the running back, and Brock Bowers. That's going to leave their number 1 wide receiver most games in single coverage. And Jacoby Myers is a guy that went over 1,000 yards last year that they throw to in the red zone. I don't understand why Jacoby Myers continues to fall. In our draft, he went in the 6th round. We'll give Hannah some love here. We'll throw some flowers her way. Great pick by Hannah Franson. Jacoby Myers, to me, is a guy that you can absolutely go after. You mentioned my other guy, Ricky Pearsall. It's ridiculous how late he went in our draft. I think down to the 10th round. Remember, Debo's gone. Ayuk's hurt. Jennings is hurt. He's going to be the guy. Like outside of George Kittle, he's going to be the guy.
And McCaffrey's still there.
Of course he is.
Healthy McCaffrey means the PPR from the running back position, catching the ball is a factor too, but you're right.
And the other guy, and I'll talk about him in our rookie watch, but I wanted to bump him up into this conversation because he's still, I don't think, being properly drafted. And that's the rookie in Tampa Bay, Emeka Egbuka. He has blown up here in the preseason. And remember, Mike Evans is still Mike Evans, and he's awesome. But this kid's electric. Godwin is hurt. And I think Egbuka is a guy, if you can get him in rounds 5 through 12, he's a steal.
Okay. Well, we're going to differ on that when we get there. He's playing great, but we'll talk about that when we get to the rookie stuff.
Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz.
It is the dog days of summer, and your AC may be feeling it, and summer isn't over yet. So don't let one last heat wave cause a meltdown in your life. No one needs that. Upgrade your furnace and AC system now with 36 months off, 0% financing based on credit approval with the Aquarius Home Services State Fair Special. And doggone it, spend the rest of your summer cool and worry-free. Schedule your free estimate at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. 10K Construction is your one-stop for all your general contracting needs, whether interior, exterior, residential, commercial, or multifamily properties. They build relationships with their clients, and that's how they've grown their business through referrals. Plus, they are teaming up with LP SmartSide to become Minnesota's premier siding installer. And they're also partnering with IKO Shingles as well. They've got the best of the best to do the job right. 10K Construction covers both Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, the rumor is they charge a little extra because it's Packer land. I'm not sure about that. But what I am sure about, 10K Construction is the company you want handling all of your general contracting needs. Go to 10kconstruction.com for details.
Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than my good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Tight ends, and keep in mind, when you're drafting rounds 5 through 12, think about this: role, usage, talent, and situation. Those 4 things. How do those players fit into those 4 things? Role, usage, talent, and situation. Here are my tight ends. Sam Laporta, since they announced that he was hurt, he's kind of been, not playing as much in the preseason, not getting as much work in their training camp. He's dropped in drafts. Maybe not quite to 5, but he has dropped.
He has dropped.
And I'm still going to go after him. There's so many different thoughts about when players get hurt in the preseason, what's your approach when you draft them? And I try to, unless it's a serious injury, I try to block that out of my mind. Because inevitably, if I decide not to pick him because they're hurt now, I get screwed in weeks 8, 9, 10, 11 when they're healthy and they're lighting it up. So I try not to concentrate so much on the injuries in preseason. So Laporta's there on my list. Tyler Warren, who I'm with you.
I'm all in.
And now that Daniel Jones is the quarterback, I feel a lot better about his situation in Indianapolis. And Brenton Strange. Brenton Strange, to me, is a tight end that I'm going to look at near the end of my drafts. Maybe not my number 1 tight end if I were to take 2, but if I'm going to wait on a tight end, he's the guy I'm going to wait for. If I'm going to draft all my other players, and maybe in rounds 14, if he's still there, I will take Brenton Strange, and I'll feel good about it because I think he's going to have a pretty good year. So those are my tight ends rounds 5 through 12.
So I'm going to say this. You've got to make a decision with where your draft position is and how you want to approach tight ends. And it also comes down to your league. Most leagues require you to start a tight end. And if that's the case, then this conversation really matters. If you play in a league where tight ends can be flexed and you don't have to start a tight end, then Brock Bowers and Trey McBride and maybe George Kittle are the only tight ends that are really relevant in this conversation. But I would say 9 of every 10 leagues that I play in, you have to draft a tight end. And so what I'm going to tell you right now, I think will be one of the most valuable things you hear in drafting tight ends. You either get Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, or George Kittle. You decide early that I'm going to be committed to getting one of those guys. And you can do that in the first couple of rounds, no problem.
Bowers for sure.
Bowers, you're going to probably go late first, early second.
Yeah.
But those other two aren't going to go far behind that. After that, I think there's a significant drop. The guy I'm going to mention today, I'll be happy to bet money. And I hope Vikings fans are watching. You can ping me at Gorgomatic21 on Twitter.
I'm going to write this down.
This guy I'm going to mention.
I like money, so go ahead.
This guy I'm going to mention, I will bet right now, scores as many fantasy points as any other tight end out there. We can have a head-to-head wager if you disagree, including your guy Sam Laporta, who I also love, including Hawkinson in Minnesota.
All right, David
Njoku is my guy.
My gosh.
The quarterback decision in Cleveland, the numbers speak to this. He is going to be an absolute beast.
Okay, what are we betting here? You're saying that
I'll take Laporta.
Hold on. You're saying he's going to score as many fantasy football points as any tight end in the league.
I'm going to say outside of the big three. I'll go head-to-head with you. You can pick a Laporta.
Outside of the big three
now. The big three are not to be touched. But if you love Laporta, I'll take Njoku straight up against him.
Okay.
Alex, our guy on the other side of the camera, loves his Vikings, drinks his purple Kool-Aid. Yeah. I'll take Njoku straight up against Hawkinson. I'm not afraid.
All right, dinner.
All right, dinner it is. I love it.
There's no
we'll
way.
go to your barbecue spot.
There's no way that,
he's outscoring Laporta. Oh, yes, he is.
He's not doing that.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
I love this. Live betting on the show.
You are once again
We'll find out. We will find out. The other tight end that I think has been undervalued, our neighbors to the east, Green Bay, I think Tucker Kraft is a really sneaky good tight end that you can get late in these drafts, Randy, and he is super reliable. And so the point in this entire conversation is if you don't get the big three, don't panic. Be patient.
Right.
Some of these guys will be there. And the strange kid in Jacksonville, I am 100% with you on that.
And again, it depends on what your priorities are when you draft, obviously. And most people that play fantasy football have a strategy in mind. They've been doing it for years. They know what they want to do. And so some of these players fit into that for you between rounds 5 and 12, and some of them may not. So again, though, I think we all can agree that you're going to win your draft, you'll win your league by getting those sneaky great players, that great depth in those rounds between 5 and 12.
Well, just think about some of the players we've talked about. Ja'Cory, Krosky Merritt, the guy in Washington in our draft, was an afterthought late in the draft when most people had lost interest.
Right.
He's now likely going to be the RB1 on a team in Washington that's probably going to be a top 5 offense in the NFL. Think about that. This happens in every single draft. And I think people get so wrapped up in those first couple rounds, and it's exciting. You're getting some of your favorite players. Oh, Justin Jefferson. It's great. But you're all getting good players. The draft gets separated in the later rounds, and that's when sharp fantasy players can really make their hay.
And we said this last week, don't be afraid in the last 2 or 3 rounds of your draft to take a shot, to go for a rookie, go for someone that might have a big year. Say if somebody gets hurt, they're the backup right now. Don't be afraid to do that, because sometimes those players turn out to be the gems of the draft and can help you win a league.
What's really a fun exercise for maybe people that are a little newer to fantasy, halfway through the season, go back to your particular website. And for our draft, we used ESPN. Go back and look at that draft board. You will not believe 8 weeks into the season how different the draft would go after seeing some of the things you're talking about, Randy. That, to me, speaks to the volume of doing your homework and having some depth to your knowledge when you get into a draft, because those final 5 or 6 rounds can really make a difference.
All right, let's move on to the rookies. And Kevin and I have will, I'm sure, differ on this, but rookies,
yes, we will.
Rookies to get and rookies to avoid. Mm-hmm. Here's my list. Jaden Higgins, 5 drops in 295 targets in college. If I can get Jaden Higgins and I'm going to take a chance on him late. He's not an early draft guy. He's probably not a middle round draft guy. But if he's there rounds 12 through 15, I'm going to take Jaden Higgins and take a shot on him. I'm not a believer in Christian Kirk being the second guy behind Nico Collins in Texas for the Texans. Judkins, now that his legal matters are behind him, I am all over this guy. And I know I can see your look right now. People maybe can't see it, but I can see it.
I'm cringing.
I'm all over this guy because I think eventually he's going to end up being the running back.
Well, hold on. You said the legal troubles are over, and legally you're 100% right. But I still think the NFL...
Again, though, I can't... I'm not going to... It's like Jordan Addison.
Okay.
I'm not going to worry about that because I know I'm going to get him for the vast majority of the season.
That's true.
Right?
No,
now, Rashee Rice is a little bit different.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to play the first 4 games, and then they're going to figure out his suspension, and who knows what that's going to look like.
Likely is going to be more significant than Addison's.
I am staying away right now from Rashee Rice because I don't know
that's fair.
What that looks like. For Judkins, for right now.
Well, he's a great talent. To your point, like this kid's talented. He was way on my radar before the legal issues. So,
okay. All right. Here's the 2 guys I'm avoiding, and it's your guy from Tampa.
Oh, you got to be joking.
No, and here's
Randy,
why.
Come on.
No. Here's why, though. When Godwin comes back and he's healthy, and you got Mike Evans out there, and I'll throw in the tight end Otten, who's not a bad ball catcher. There's too many people in front of him to get the football. To me, there's too many people. If I'm feeding Mike Evans, I'm going to feed Godwin. I get this kid's really good. I don't disagree with you on the talent level. I just think there's too many people in front of him right now to get to get the kind of production that you're hoping to get from him. Will I draft him as a backup? Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll back as a backup, but I'm going to avoid him. And to be honest with you, I don't think I have him in one of my drafts so far, and I've got like 20 of them.
Yikes.
So I don't think I have him yet. And my other one is Scatabo for the Giants. He is struggling right now to even be the backup to Tyrone Tracy. So I'm going to stay away from those guys right now. I guess I should, maybe avoid's not the right word. Maybe it's a wait and see on those 2 guys. But that's my rookie list.
Well, my loves are easy. I've been talking about Tyler Warren every single show here. I'm all over this kid. Daniel Jones being named the quarterback only enhances my affection. I'm moving him way up my draft boards. I'm going to pick him ahead of his average draft position. Egbuka, the guy we just talked about, I'll say this. If Godwin and Evans end up getting healthy and being healthy all year, then Randy, you're going to end up being right. I can't see it at their ages, and we already know Godwin's going to miss some time here on the front end, likely the first 2 to 3 weeks. What I would say is this. You draft Egbuka, and maybe you get him at the normal spot where he's been going, which is kind of middle of the draft, towards the tail end, and he gets off to a great start.
Yeah.
If you're a sharp fantasy player and you start to track that Godwin is back at practice, now you've got some trade bait. I think one of the most enjoyable parts of playing fantasy is the waiver wire and making trades. And if you get a young player, a rookie off to a fast start, don't be afraid to be aggressive, knowing that Godwin's coming back. And Randy's point is legit. I mean, Godwin's going to get more looks than this kid when he's healthy if Evans is still out there. Then you move your player. As we sit here right now, I'm all over the kid. The 2 guys I'm avoiding, I had Cam Scatabo written down. I have completely avoided him and moved Tyrone Tracy up on all my draft boards. He's going to be the RB1. He's reliable. He's safe. He's a lot like James Conner. My only question is, can the Giants score enough points to make that relevant? But avoid Cam Scatabo, who's kind of a draft darling in the early stages of fantasy drafts a couple weeks ago. The other guy, and it's no knock on Omarion Hampton in LA with the Chargers. Their offensive line is decimated right now. And this kid, I think, is going to be put into a situation where there's not going to be a lot of help. They don't have high-end talent outside of one receiver. They're bringing in veterans now that are 100 years old to try to help their depth.
They're not 100 years.
Keenan Allen's been in this league. I feel like I was in college.
I drafted Keenan Allen this week. You know what?
He's a filler for sure.
I for a late round pick, I think that's a legitimate choice.
Well, they're going to throw him the ball. I mean, he's still a guy that will kick 6 balls a game.
They got that connection, those two.
For sure. I don't disagree with that, but my point is the Chargers are a hot mess, and this kid's going to get fed to the wolves. So the Hampton kid in L.A., I'm out.
All right. Last thing, I asked Kevin to come up with his can't miss player for the fantasy season in 2025. I already know who it is, but because you can't
frothing.
stop. You can't. It's not Tyler Warren, even though he's talked about him every week. But go ahead. Who's your can't? You got to have this guy if you want to win your league.
So far, I'm going to have 8 teams total in fantasy. I've only drafted 3 times, and I'm 3 for 3. I am not missing Chase Brown.
Okay.
Whatever I can do, I need Chase Brown. It's likely going to be the highest scoring offense in football. Their defense stinks. He catches the football, and the guy that he shared time with last year is no longer a factor in Zach Moss. Chase Brown is going to absolutely blow up. I can't wait to hear your guy.
Well, my guy's Brock Bowers, and
yes.
I have fallen in love with this pick. I'm not a tight end guy when I draft, right? And some of my drafts early on, I kind of stayed away from drafting a tight end. But to be honest with you, in the last 3 or 4 drafts that I've had, if he's sitting there at the end of round 1 or the start of round 2, or even in the middle of round 2, I'm taking him. And it's an adjustment when you do that, because now you're going to lose the chance at another starting running back or another, top flight receiver. But what you gain, to me, is you have beaten everybody else on the table for that one position, especially if you have to start a tight end. Now, if you don't, to your point, then it's a little bit different thinking. But if you've got to start a tight end, I mean, how can you miss? I mean, it's just...
Only way he misses is if he gets hurt. That's the only way. You can't factor that in.
And all of these players are that conversation.
People that jump up and draft a high-end quarterback early and play in a tight end mandatory league, the difference between Josh Allen and even Jordan Love is not as significant as the difference between a Brock Bowers and a Hawkinson. Like, this is the alpha, the number 1 tight end. Every single week that you play at that position, you have a significant edge. You can't say that at almost any other spot. So yeah, I am 100% with you.
There are people, though, that will argue with you, and I can see their point, is there is a significant difference between Josh Allen and Jordan Love, because if you look at draft boards, especially in the drafts I've had, Josh Allen is going start of round 3, middle of 3, maybe the start of round 4. Jordan Love is like in round 14.
Way late.
I mean, that's a huge span. And again, it's all your preference on how you build your team. Because I like getting that great quarterback. I feel better about my draft until I have one good running back and he gets hurt. And then I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do at running back now? Right. But it's all your preference as to how you feel about it. I've had a few drafts where I've waited. I've done the Kevin Gorg strategy and waited till the 10th round. And,
I usually wait.
Yeah. And that'll work out okay too. But there is a gap, even.
Well, there's a gap for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, about half the leagues I play in, I'm going to play in 8. Half of them are going to be a guillotine style.
What a rookie. You're only playing in 8?
Well, I can't.
Jeez.
20, I couldn't even. I have ADD. I couldn't even keep track of 20. But what I'll say is this: if you play in a guillotine league and you don't get the quarterback you want early,
that's a different thing.
So that's what, and I like to wait. Like my habit is I want depth at the running back position. I think you can go out and get a receiver at almost any point in the season that's going to be serviceable. Running back to me is the area. I am that old school guy where I want depth at that position.
All right. Well, that's it for this show. Next week, we're going to talk about a number of different things. One of them is 6 players that can break fantasy football this year. Who are the 6 players you think, or I think, maybe what you think, are the players that can absolutely break fantasy football this year? Also, thoughts about constructing a lineup. Do you construct a lineup thinking that it's your starting lineup? How do you draft? How do you draft your team? Do you draft thinking this is my starting lineup? Or do you just draft the best players and then kind of
really good question.
Try to figure out how the lineup will shake out? And the last one will be undervalued players. Who are the most undervalued players heading into this season? Everybody's drafting right now. Everybody's busy doing this. The football season is about 2 weeks away. And of course, when we get into the actual week of games, we will then turn our total focus on the actual games themselves and the players that are in those games.
Yeah, who let the dogs out is right. We're going to be ready for those games, matchups. I've promised we're going to have prop bets. We're going to have daily fantasy touts. I mean, we're going to literally cover it all week by week, and then we're going to have updates after this show airs, middle of the week. We're going to come back at the end of the week with weather and injury updates on a Friday, so you're ready for the weekend, and we're going to attack the slate. I can't wait.
And next week, we'll also talk about preseason week 3 and some camp notes, and there'll be cut down days happening around the NFL. Our thanks to Aquarius Home Services and to 10K Construction, Minnesota Masonic Charities, and Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. And I think we're going to go someplace better for dinner.
Well, all I can tell you is this. If you could get me a link to a great place to ride.
This is money.
I want a David Njoku
bank.
jersey. When he's kicking the back end of Sam Laporta, I'm wearing
I will wear the jersey if he outscores those guys. But
no, he's outscoring Laporta. That's the bet. He's going to take Laporta down. You don't get the field.
No.
Time out.
The bet was...
No, the bet is you pick your guy and we go head to head.
Alex, what did he say?
Bet. Run the tape back.
Not the top 3. That was the bet. You're saying he's going to score as many fantasy football points as any tight end in the league.
I'm going to say outside of the big 3. I'll go head to head with you. You can pick a Laporta.
Outside of the big 3
Yeah,
now.
the big 3 are not to be touched. But if you love Laporta, I'll take Njoku straight up against him.
Okay.
Alex, our guy on the other side of the camera, loves his Vikings, drinks his purple Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I'll take Njoku straight up against Hawkinson. I'm not afraid.
All right, dinner.
All right, dinner it is. I love it. The top 3 are out. You pick anybody after
else.
that. And
I don't pick them. It's just
you have
all
to
of
pick
them.
a guy. You don't get the
my
field.
God.
Come on, I'm not giving things away.
See how the rules have changed?
Go back and watch the tape.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Go David Njoku.
Oh, my God.